that. Even 9 o'clock is like,
Hi there, welcome to a podcast, The Artist, and thank you for being here and sharing yourself and Mr. Shyam Benegal with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. Let's see what happens, what unfolds.
Tell me, Dev, you have worked with Mr. Shyam Benegal, and Mr. Benegal is what, I think we should get into because he's so much in the news and everyone is talking about because he passed away in December. And I thought this is the best way to sort of get him out there through you. You have worked with him and also you are related to him. He's your uncle. How closely you knew him as a person besides him being a filmmaker?
It's a long journey, and I kind of got to know him when he used to come to visit my father, who was in advertising. My father was the one of the things my father did was he was the head of OBM, Ogilvy Benson and Mather, in which was the advertising agency, and that was in Delhi. So Sham was, I think, at I don't remember where, ASP or one of the other agencies. He used to work there, and he used to come often to visit. So I was very, very young at that point. And I remember him coming over for lunches and meeting my dad a lot. So that was like an initial memory. And then the next sort of memory, and these are really, I'm just trying to join the dots and connect the dots here for you, which I haven't done kind of myself. So it's more of a exploratory journey for me as well. But I do remember when I was in high school, in junior school, that one of my, I think the history teacher asked me whether I was related to Shyam because Ankur had just come out. And I think I looked at him and I was a bit sheepish and I smiled then. And that was it. And then later when I graduated and I wanted to go to film school, FTII, I was told by some other younger filmmakers that, it's a waste of time. Don't go there. There's going to be another strike and it's going to be closed for a few years. Why don't you instead come and work with us? I think they were looking for a free intern, unpaid intern. They became really good friends, and they're really well known filmmakers. But they were very young. I was like just a kid, and then somebody, a family friend, suggested that I work with Ramesh Sippy. And he was very keen that that's the only, if you want to make films, that's the only place you go to. I remember telling Ramesh Sippy this story years and years later, but which he was very amused by. And I was sort of young and said, no, I don't want to work with all of that. I would like to then, if I can't go to film school, I'll go and work with Shyam Benegal. And my dad was like, if you want to do that, you're on your own. Just pick up the phone, call him up and do what you want to. And as it happened, he was coming to a place called Sona, which is a few hours outside of New Delhi. And he was making a documentary for a very legendary documentary filmmaker, Sukhdev, who had just died quite unexpectedly. I don't remember what the reasons for that were. And so Sukhdev's wife had asked Shyam to finish the film for him. So I met him there and I kind of got a sense of it. And then after that, I went to Bombay and I worked with the animator Ram Mohan, who was working at Film Center in Tardeo. And I worked with him on a movie, and then I went to meet Shyam to see if there was anything going on, and he suggested I go meet Shashi Kapoor. So I trekked out to Juhu, to Janki Kutir, and met Shashi Kapoor, and they were about to start a new production. And I kind of got my first job with Filmwalas. And that film was going to be directed by Shyam Benegal, which was Kalyug. So, so that was the kind. So it's been quite a long sort of I think just a long history, and then of course there were several films after that,
Yeah.
and then he was asked to do two films almost simultaneously: a film on Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime
Mm.
Minister of India, and
Mm.
a film on Satyajit Ray, the filmmaker from
Yes.
Calcutta.
Yeah.
And he asked me, like, which one do you want to work on? Um, and it was a really tough choice because the Jawaharlal Nehru film was being filmed by Subrata Mitra, who had filmed all of Ray's, like the classic films of Ray's. And I was really kind of quite enamored by him.
Mm.
Um, but then there was this Ray thing. So I kind of chose the Ray film and then spent another 4 years working on that while he was
Mm.
working on the Nehru film.
Mm.
And so, and then after that, I started making my own films. And then we kept in touch, and I had moved away, and then I would come back. And in fact, when I finished my first film, he was the guest of honor at the premiere at Regal Cinema. I found some old photographs of that, which I'm going to share
Mm.
soon.
Yes.
So, and then there were just after that, it was, we would meet here in New York where I'm working now. And those were really great fun times because I think Shyam and Mira both had a very, very special spot for this city. And I remember Neera, his wife, once, when I was, I think, here studying, or I was coming here or something, she just literally grabbed me by my coat, these shirt tails, and sort of jabbed a finger here at my heart and said, "You should always keep a little space for New York in your heart." I think I took that to heart, but so it was, one of their favorite kind of cities because it's really like this amazing melting pot. It's a lot like Bombay. It's a lot like Bombay, where you have
Yes.
just different communities from all over the country coming in, and you make the most sort of incredible friendships. And you make, which is what I love about Bombay. I love that about Bombay. And you meet different people, and it just the city keeps inspiring you, no matter how difficult it is to live. And it is very difficult to live in both of these places. But there's something
Yes.
about these cities that, at least for me, they keep me on edge. They don't make me complacent, and they just inspire me. And you're constantly, you're inspired by things you see, by people you meet, by
Yeah.
little details you see on the street of life, so there was all of that. And then I remember we would meet here, and if there was some very incredibly boring events that they had to go to, I would sneak them out of some side exit, and then we would go away typically to Chinatown, to have a really cheap, simple meal. And a few times I think they had decided to go vegetarian, and for whatever health reasons, etc. And then we had some absolutely amazing times, and then a few friends would drop by, and we would chat till, the owners would come and say, "Listen, you guys have to leave. The restaurant is closed. It's been closed for the last 45 minutes or 1 hour."
Right.
But those were just really wonderful times. And then later on, of course, when I was in Bombay, every time we would meet for, what would be like a short dinner, early dinner, would end up sort of
Right.
lasting for like 5 hours of just conversation. And in fact, right till the very, very end, what is amazing is, till the very end, when I met him for dinner, he was going into the granular details about, special effects and CGI, and some of the challenges of working with CGI, and the kind of different approaches to that, and what the struggles for filmmakers were. I mean, it was so specific, and so into the weeds, and which is what I kind of found incredibly amazing, because he had this ability to go deep down into details, and then also come up and look at the big picture, and look at, what is the ideas we're kind of confronting with. What are the challenges today of living, of life, of what is the political landscape, worldwide, and what are the changes and shifts, etc. So that was quite incredible. I remember telling a friend of mine, I said, a colleague of mine, I said, "You won't believe this, but I had the most incredibly long 45-minute conversation about CGI and special effects at Shyam, and this was like when he was 91 or something, 90,
Wow.
no, but sorry, 89 or 89, yeah, 89.
Wow. Wow. Well, so
So
tell me, Dave, in terms of knowing him so closely, if you had to describe Mr. Shyam Benegal in a few words, if you had to use some words, how would you describe him?
um, that's a really difficult question. That's a really, really
Mm,
difficult question. And it's very hard at this point, particularly for me to be able to zoom out the way
mm,
you'd like me
mm,
to and
mm,
distill
mm,
it down to a few words.
mm,
But I don't know. I think like he truly was a Renaissance man. He truly
mm,
was someone who kind of had a understanding of like everything. There was not one thing that you could go and talk about or discuss or have a conversation about, or an evening where you'd sit around a dining table and he would talk about something where he didn't kind of have an incredibly knowledgeable perspective and take on something. And this is not just some kind of very sort of superficial kind of read that you'd have
mm.
today by people. This is not like a TLDR. This was not that, but you every time you think that, oh, that was that was really amazing. That was something completely different. I, would never have thought of that.
Yeah.
Whether it is about politics, whether it is about independence, whether it is about, whatever. He was a voracious reader. If you look at the bookshelf, for example, at his
Yeah.
office,
Yeah.
um, that alone tells you a lot about an individual. If you look at his bookshelf at home, that
Yeah.
alone tells you a lot about, who the person is. So um, he read books and he listened to music, and he had a real sort of understanding of even, for example, in Mandi, of that kind of poetry that we were using, the kind of music styles that we were using. So I think Renaissance man would be the right kind of,
So the right kind of description
yeah,
for
yeah.
Mr. Shyam Benegal. Dave,
Um,
you worked with him, you know him closely as well. When you look back, post you started your own journey as a filmmaker, post you have made so many films, done so much work of your own self. When you look back and your journey colliding with Mr. Shyam Benegal, and as you also said, and as Steve Jobs said, you can only join the dots looking back. A few things that you realize now while you do the work yourself, that what Mr. Benegal would have pointed out in his journey that time.
it was not the pointing out that he did, and
Mm,
that was the wonderful thing. It was the enabling that he did,
mm,
and it
mm,
was the ability. He allowed you to discover your own voice, and the most important thing was that I think as a director I learned,
mm,
and it was not like, hey, this is a lesson, but it was more that that was what was Hawa mein thi. It was in the air. It was
mm,
in that you could feel that. It is about trust.
mm,
Making a film is not about telling a story. It's not about who your actors or your cast, etc., and all of that is. It's none of that. It's really about trust. I think that he trusted his actors. He trusted, Shabana, Nasir, Om. Of course, they are incredible actors. There's no question about it. He trusted the
lovely.
people
Yeah.
who were writing, his cinematographers who worked with him,
Yeah.
the writers, Shama Zaidi, Satyadev Dubey, um, others who collaborated with him
Yeah.
after I left as well. And so
Yeah.
that's the one thing I would take with me, that I brought with me into
Yeah.
my collaboration with my team and the people I've worked with. And I've worked with them for like, I met them around the time I was assisting Sham. So, we
Yeah.
from that time, we've all kind of worked together. And there's this incredible sense of trust. It's like even today, I've just finished a film. I've locked a picture, and last night I sent it to my colleague to look at. Um, and to tell me, is this good or not good? Is this working or not? And it's trust. It's just the trust. I trust his voice. I trust him. And I think that's one of the things. The other big thing is the style of working. And I think my style of
Yeah.
working is really the kind of style that I worked and learned there, which was like you're essentially, you're like a theater company. The only thing is you're making a movie. So you work in a kind of very non-hierarchic manner. There are no
Mm.
hierarchies. Whereas today, if you go into filmmaking, there are all these, and I find that kind of difficult even when I'm making my own films now, that there are all these sort of clear lines and boundaries and
Yes.
departments, and I'm only doing this, and I'm doing that, and I'm doing this. I won't be looking at that. Whereas when we were working, we were just given, we were not said do everything. He didn't say that, but we were just encouraged to go out and do everything. And I did everything. And that's how you learn about um, not just making a movie or telling a story, but you really, I think, learn about how to live life. And that's the big thing. I think that, again, it's about connecting these dots. So it's not something that he said,
Yes.
hey, this is how you live life. But you're asking me to think back now,
Yes.
and reflect. And
Lovely.
I think that's one of the things I would think of.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. They have this point of building trust with your team. And now, over your journey over the past 30 years, 35 years, since 1994, when you made your first film, English August, and I'm going to come to that in a bit, building trust is something which is very critical. Is there some, how do you do that? Is there a way that you do it with your team? Or is it that it's not something that you think of? You just keep doing the work and it happens over time?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. I don't think I have an answer to that. And I don't know. And I wonder whether it's the kind of, I think the thing is, let me put it this way. When uh, SP was making the Nehru film, I had gone off to, uh, Shashi Kapoor had asked me to work with him on Girish Karnad's film Utsav. There was an English language version of that, which sadly never saw the light of day. And
Mm.
that was being worked on in England. And I was sent off to England to work on the final sort of post production. So Kunal and I were working on this with some really terrific post production people who had worked with Stanley Kubrick and David Lean, and
Wow.
also with Merchant Ivory on Heat and Dust and stuff like that. So it was a wonderful sort of, I think, 2 months or a month or something of that sort. I don't remember. And then
Mm.
I was about to come back to Bombay, and Shashi asked me that, can you stay on longer? Jennifer wasn't well, and he wanted someone to look at the subtitles of 36 Chaurangi Lane. So I sat and reworked those subtitles, and I don't remember what I did, but I had to spend a month working on that. And then I came back with no idea to work, but then I got a call from Shyam saying that the Ray film was still waiting for me to come. And I think that, so then I went and met him, and then I started work on it. And now bringing this experience that I had in post production in London into this work, and I think the big thing there was that he left me alone, and he trusted me. He trusted that I could sort of take his vision and complete it, and whatever he had in mind for this film, I could make sure that it was implemented in the right way.
Mm.
The editor didn't know English, so he couldn't really edit. So I had to sit and actually edit the whole thing. And there were a bunch of other technical issues, and then also just finding the negatives of Mr. Ray's films, working with Shubroto Mitra, which was another incredible story on that, and becoming a lifelong friend of his. But I think it was Shyam's trust in me, and it was that trust that he gave me, and therefore he gave me a sense of confidence. And it was difficult because you're a kind of, will I be able to do this? Will I be able to
Mm.
finish this? Will I be able to? But I
Mm.
was young and pretty headstrong, and I just come back, and And I said, yeah, it'll take this much of time and I'll need this much of time and this is what we'll do. And we did it. We did it. And I think I think the most memorable thing in that is that, I got a VHS tape of the film, and then he took the tape from me and he pulled out his pen and he signed on it and he said, this film is as much yours as it is mine.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of trust, that he trusted me that I would do it the right way, and in the way that he would have liked the film, because ultimately his name was going on it. And I think that gives you a sense of confidence that you can do it,
Confidence.
and then you
Yes.
take that trust and you carry it forward, and you
Yes.
give it forward to the team that you're working with, whether it's your
Yeah.
cinematographer or your
Yeah.
sound recordist
Yeah.
or music composer, or production designer. You kind of
Yeah.
trust their way of looking at. You trust them.
Yes. Yes. Tell me, Dev, with your interaction and with your understanding, Mr. Benegal literally built a parallel industry which was like I would not say challenging the mainstream Bollywood, but as strong as the mainstream Bollywood with his kind of body of work with Ankur Manthan and all the other films. Did you by any chance during this journey feel that when an independent filmmaker, and I would say that it's still independent, building your parallel industry, he was an indie filmmaker, a great filmmaker in a capacity, do you feel in now in being in a position that while you are going through your journey, there are multiple opposing forces, and what would they be? How would you, sort of, if you would like to describe them for our audiences who are also most of them independent filmmakers?
You're asking really tough questions this morning.
Is it? No, of course not.
Um, and I haven't even had coffee, so my
You,
brain is not functioning. Um, one of the things is, and I think I'm going to come back to the trust point, because I think it's
okay.
something suddenly struck me, is that even when films were being financed back in the day,
Yeah.
there was a sense of trust that whoever gave you the money trusted that you're going to go out and do something. So when Blaze gave money to Shyam, they trusted him. They trusted that
Yeah.
Lalit Bijlani and Freni Variava trusted that he would do it, and they kept, repeatedly financing or giving him the money to make films. Similarly, with other people in the industry, and I think it's important for our viewers to remember that this whole notion of labeling and putting things into boxes, which I kind of dislike, and I find that very actually colonial. And I find that also very kind of a white person's perspective on things. Oh, this is indie, this is that, this is that. This kind of, you're a brown filmmaker, you're a black filmmaker, you can only do this, you can only do that. I don't think that was the case when I was starting out my career. And I think the wonderful
Mm-hmm.
thing in that was that there was also none of this. It was never called Bollywood. This is just a new kind of, again, British invention. So, and people resist that. I think that, they resist that whole thing. When I was making a film on Shabana for the New York Film Festival, I think Javed Saab had a very interesting, he resisted that idea of calling it Bollywood. He said Indian film industry. And I think that that's actually the
Uh,
right way
mm,
of describing it, because what's important
mm-hmm.
in that is the friendships. I mean, the people who are some of my,
Yes.
it's kind of amazing. Every weekend, I used to live in Juhu, and every weekend there was a place, a cafe, sort of place in the evenings, around 5:30 or something, close by there, where there would be a bunch of filmmakers who would gather around, and they were quite eclectic, by the way, just to let you know. There was Ramesh Sippy, and there were all kinds of other, and I got to chat, I became friends with them, and
Yeah.
I mean, got to chat with them, and you realize at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you're making a film with a budget 20 times that I have, or,
Mm,
working with some big movie stars.
mm,
The challenges you're facing are the same. The
yeah.
struggles you're facing are the same.
Hmm.
And I think that's what completely kind of leveled or united us or brought us together. It's the same issues about, you'd suddenly have someone coming up and saying, some really established filmmaker saying, you know, just saying, listen, how important is it to have a backstory? Is this, do I need to put that in the film or not? And you're looking at him and saying, this guy's like made three of the biggest blockbusters and he's actually having this question, this thing. And you realize suddenly, we're all human. We're the same. We have the same kind of concerns and worries and anxieties. And so it's not like you have 100 crores and you can make a movie. Everything is just fine. No, it's not
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how to answer your question. And I think that I think that I have some of the greatest friends across what we might call these divides, which are not divides, and
Hmm.
some that I would reach out to and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or will you come and see my rough cut? And will you what do you think? Is this working or is that working? And also some of the kind of knowledge that these guys have is just astonishing. Their
Hmm.
filmic knowledge is um, just incredible. It's just incredible. I know Baba Azmi, for example, just to take one name, which suddenly
Hmm.
comes. He knows this French film Wages of Fear, frame by frame, backwards and forwards. He can tell you everything. That's how he
Oh my God.
knows it. And Zubin Mehta, I think, had once said that every composer should know one symphony by heart. And
Hmm.
I thought, oh, that could apply, that should apply. I should think about that for a film. But here you go, Baba knows this thing. Baba is like an authority on Kurosawa. Did anyone know that?
Wow. Wow.
No.
Wow.
So there are these gems that you have there. They're absolutely astonishing, and these people who are just wonderful. So this idea that there's this kind of battleground, this whole divide and rule nonsense, which is, I hate that. I find these lines and boundaries and all of that, it's a very kind of European American thing, which I think we need to resist.
Right, right. Dev,
So
tell me this about your first film, 1994, English August, which is a brilliant film and the first independent film that got distributed by 20th Century Fox. If I'm not mistaken, it was the first Indian independent film, and I don't even think even now any film recently has got distributed by such a big American distributor. That time, that was 1994, and now 2024. How do you, when you look back, do you see any differences in the system in which a film distribution works for a filmmaker like you making the kind of films that you are making?
it's good and bad, I think both. I'm
Mm.
back in the
Mm.
day, you didn't have smaller theaters. So when the head of Fox, who was a wonderful guy and is a now a very dear friend of mine, and
Oh,
we were struggling with theaters which were like 1200 seats, and the theater owners were just quite brutal, because they would tell you, if you don't fill this up by 40% on any show, we're kicking you out, we don't want you in there. And he kept, the head of Fox Sundar kept wishing that there were smaller, like 200 seater cinemas and stuff, which we missed. We were clearly that they didn't exist at that point. So in a sense, it's kind of easier. When I made my third film, Road Movie, with Abhay Deol, we had smaller cinemas, which, by the way, the film is getting a re-release this year
wow.
I believe in February or so, or March, I'm told.
Wow. Wow.
So that should be quite good. Yeah, Abhay has been on my case to sort of get it back out. And
Awesome.
so, we needed that one, sort of had smaller cinemas, so it kind of did better. But it's a real struggle. I mean, getting in Bombay to get out and go to a cinema theater to watch a movie is a real commitment. And then, of course, today you have everything coming at home, not for everybody, but for, the privileged people who can buy television and watch it. Though I've seen a lot of people watching it on sort of smaller screens and smaller devices. So at one level, yes, you can reach a much wider kind of audience, so there's something great in that. Um, but do people actually are people actually watching films or not is a question. And I think we're so distracted, myself included, today that, we're distracted by shorter things. You want to get onto YouTube and watch something like that, or you want to watch a short. And, watching a 100-minute, 90-minute film is a real
Yes.
commitment. There
Yes.
are people doing it. I do it from time to time. There was a time when I would watch a lot of films. I would watch
Yes.
a hell of a lot of films. I watch about 300 films a year or 400 films
Wow.
a year and stuff. But, then I slowly I also got caught up in doing other things. And then I read somewhere Werner Herzog had this wonderful thing that a filmmaker should only see 3 or 4 films a year. The important thing when I was making English August, for example, I really requested my team not to watch anything.
Mm.
Because I think what happens is you don't let your own voice emerge. You're letting
Yeah.
your voice get crowded by other voices. And the important thing is to try and, however difficult it is, to try and discover your own kind of voice so that
Yeah.
you don't end up just looking at something and then copying from there and copying from there and copying from there. So a lot of movies that one sees today seem quite derivative. You feel like, hey, I've seen this somewhere, or hey, I've seen that somewhere. Whereas it's a challenge because there's so many more coming out now and there's so much more. But yet I think there are ways of looking at the world which can make your film quite singular. I remember when I was working on the Ray film, I think Mr. Ray asked me once, like, what do you want to do? And of course, stupidly, I said, I want to direct. And never say that. But so he said, well, if you want to do that, you should have 3 things in mind, which we then later, I told Shyam this, and he said, that's lovely. And I said, yeah, let's get him to say that again. So in our second round of conversations, we filmed that. It's there in the film. And so he said that you should look for details, because details in life, details make movies. And then he said, your characters should ring true. And he said that and those details will give density to your film, and your film must have density.
Mm.
So I remember when I was doing auditioning for the character, which is a process I just totally dislike. I do not like that at all. And I usually ask my colleagues to do that, and I trust their kind of choices.
Mm.
But I had my head down and I was not looking at the actor. And I remember Rahul Bose got really, really upset. And he told Uma Dacunia, who's the casting director, he said he didn't even look at me. But the point was, I was not wanting to look at him. I was wanting to hear him. And I was remembering what Ray said. Does he sound right? Is he
Lovely.
does he sound right? Is he Agastya Sen? Or
Lovely.
not?
Lovely.
Um,
Lovely. Wow. What a
and
great
so,
point.
so, I would say that in all of this whole world of so much of possibilities of distribution, and yes, you can say that, hey, there's YouTube, show your film there.
Yeah.
But it's not much about distribution that is as essential as getting people to see your work. And I think that, again, if one thinks of, hey, there was this other beautiful thing that Fellini once said, that, there is no director who will not want. Every director wants to see a line of people outside the cinema where his or her film is showing.
Yeah.
The point about, all of this is that people have to come to see your film, or your film
Yes.
you have to get people to see the film. And I think that's if you interrupt that kind of cycle, because you have the cycle of making the film and thinking about it and creating it and then making it and then showing it. But it's not just sending it out to a streaming platform or something. It's actually getting people to see it and getting to see what they feel. Because I think the biggest thing I learned, I didn't go to film school and I have no formal training in film at all. But the biggest thing I learned apart from working on the actual how to make a movie kind of thing, is that when I was sitting in the cinema theater watching English August the first few times at Regal Cinema,
Mm.
that was the biggest lesson I learned, because I suddenly realized, oh, this works and this doesn't work. And I screwed up on that thing really badly. Next time I should not do that.
Yeah.
And this is how I need to understand pacing of a film, or this is what I need to look at in character development. All of that came from my Bombay audience, which was sitting in the
Mm.
cinema and responding to the film. And you could feel the kind of,
Yeah.
restlessness or their enthusiasm or their engagement or their disengagement. And I think
Yeah.
that is an essential part of your cycle.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, lovely, lovely. They tell me this. You got this point where you mentioned, and of course, we have been battling with that ourselves. Also, we questioned it, a lot of episodes on it, in terms of it's not so much about distribution, but it is about getting your audience to watch your film. So, I have two questions here. One is that in this market, which is, you know, overflowing with different kinds of content, where the audience has become creators themselves, where you have your Instagram reels to create, your YouTube to do, your multiple other, your gaming, other things. How does a filmmaker? So your challenges in 1994 was getting your 40% audience in the theater. If you want the people, if you want the distributor to run your film, now the challenges is how do you get your audience to watch your film? How do you think that's a problem that a filmmaker like you, who has gone through a journey, can perhaps enable so many of us out there to solve it? One thing, and second is that in this market, which is so fragmented, do you think, and this is a very completely different question, that do you think that the distributors, the producers, primarily the studios, you would be dealing with them all the time, should do something like audience testing, uh, to see what a filmmaker, because your films are so radical, so out of the box, should be tested to see if the audience is going to watch those films?
oh, absolutely not.
Uh,
Absolutely not. I think the worst thing that you can do um, to a filmmaker is to go out and test the film and have people comment on it and have him come back. I mean, it's like I was telling my cousin who's an artist,
yeah.
and we were just discussing this the other day, completely disconnected, because I was, you know, working or just sort of talking to another filmmaker and listening to their kind of story about the incredible levels of interference about
Yes.
how to write his script by people who've never even written half a page in their life. So everyone
Yeah.
has an opinion, and I said, when you paint,
Yeah.
you don't have people coming up with a paintbrush in the exhibition and saying, oh, this is not right, let me just fix this, or that is not right, let me fix this. They come in, look at your painting. If they like it, they stand a little longer.
Yeah.
If they really like it, they might want to buy it, and if they don't like it, they walk away to the next painting. And I said, what is this? What is this problem with movies and filmmaking, that everybody feels that they have an opinion and they know how to make the right film? Well, if you know how to make the right film, why the hell aren't you making one? Why are you sitting and commenting on my film? So
Yes.
I think that that's important. I think up to a certain point, the Europeans have kind of understood it, that they let the filmmaker kind of do what they want to most of the times. I
Yeah.
think there's also this obsession with uh, the script, which has become like this fetishized object. So in Lokhandwala, you have everyone sitting behind their laptops, and as though that is, and people behave as though that is the movie. Guys, that is not the movie. There is something else that is going to happen, which is the movie. This is just a piece of paper, and it's just a set
Yes.
of instructions,
Yeah.
and it's a set of coded instructions. And yes, you
Yes.
can write it nicely in a nice way,
Yeah.
because after all, code is poetry, but that is not the movie.
Yeah.
That is really not the movie. And it's become like, oh, if I read a wonderful script, the script inspires me and all of that. We didn't have scripts when we were making films. We did not.
Yeah.
And I remember on Road Movie, I had a script, and I also draw storyboards, and I had storyboards and stuff. And one of the script supervisor was holding this sheaf of papers, and there was a lot of wind that was blowing around, and this gust of wind comes and it blows this the pages and everything, just all over Jaisalmer desert. And he was panicked, just panicked and expecting me to completely kind of scream my head off and freak out and stuff like that. And the cinematographer, Michel, was next to me, and we look at each other and we start laughing. And this guy looks at us laughing. And he comes up like, just really shaking, like, what's going on? And then we look at each other and say, well, now we can really make the film. And the point is, it's like when I did Split Wide Open, it was a very well written script, and Renu Saluja, who is terrific, will be a fabulous editor.
Yeah.
She said, "Give me like a week, and I'll look at the script, and I'll make the film. I'll cut the film." And so she took the script and cut the film on the basis of the script. And we sat down a week or 10 days later in the editing room. She showed it to me. And I looked at her and I said, this is just crap. This is utter rubbish. And she said, isn't it? I said, yeah. I said, please throw the script out. Just throw this out of the room. I do not want this damn piece of paper here. And now go make the movie, because the movie is actually written in the editing room.
Yeah.
And this is something I learned again working with Shyam, because when I was sent off the first time to work with his editor, Bhanudas Dipkar, I was really young. I was like 18 or something, or 19 perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And I was given some continuity sheets, and I walked into this editing room, and I was late, which is not good to begin with. Then he asked me, who are you? And I introduced myself. And then he said to me, what do you want to do? And once again, I made this mistake of saying that's the first time I said I want to direct. And he said something to me, and he said, if you want to direct, okay? You want to direct. And this is all happening in Hindi. And he says, you look at this, you see that chair sitting next to me? There was an empty chair there. He said, sit there for 4 years and you'll learn how to direct. The thing is, I actually did do that. I sat there for 4 years. And you realize that a film is actually being written in the editing room. And when we made English August, Upamanyu Chatterjee, I'd called Upamanyu into the editing room, and we sat, and for a few days, we sat and we were moving scenes around and looking at things and trying to figure out how to structure this, and at the end of the first day, Upamanyu says to me, he says, why the hell did we write a script? Because we're writing the film here. And I think that's the point. I think that you don't want studios to interfere. You don't want these development executives to interfere. And what's happening, the situation has become so kind of toxic now.
Yeah.
That everybody wants to keep their kind of very comfortable, cushy kind of lives.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
no film really is going to be greenlit, because the minute the film is greenlit, and heaven help you if it doesn't work, then that person loses their job.
Yes.
So, everything they will ask you for rewrites, and they will ask, it's just, they want to put you through what in Hollywood is called development hell.
Yeah.
And it's this kind of very vicious, toxic kind of scenario that has been created. And I remember when I did Split Wide Open, I had wanted an extra week to work on the script. And Manmohan Shetty, who was financing the film, called me into his office, and he said to me, like, are you making a film or are you filling a filing cabinet? Tum film bana rahe ho ki filing cabinet bhar rahe ho? Tum kar kya rahe ho? He said, forget this script. Jaake film bana, nahi chalegi to make another one. If that doesn't work, make another one. And he said, out of 10 films, if 8 don't work, 2 will work. That's all you need to worry about. Where is that coming from?
Wow.
Do we see that anymore today? No, we don't. But that was because he trusted you. Okay, you made a film. I trust that you can make another one.
Wow.
And so it all comes back to that idea.
So what should filmmakers do, Dave, if this is the kind of pressure? Because it's all over on in my timeline saying why art and science needs to collide, why audience testing needs to be done if we want money to be invested, and it's just done by studios. And what should we do? What should filmmakers do? What would you do? I mean, you are in a position, you can just tell them, but people who are starting off, what will they do?
One thing to remember is to have confidence in your work, because without you, that is the artist, without you, the filmmaker, without you, the writer, these organizations can't exist. they don't have people sitting and writing, and then none of them can even write a word or a line or a sentence. If they were doing that, they would not be sitting behind that desk.
Yeah.
So I'm sounding quite harsh and brutal because I don't think there's a time for politeness anymore. I think particularly you have some fabulous story. I think I'm very passionate about the idea of storytelling in India. And I think
Yeah.
that there are, Bombay, for example, every step you take, there is a story to be told. It's not even every corner of the street. Every step you take, the people you see, I keep looking at them and wondering what is her life or his life, or what are the things and those are fascinating movies to be
Yeah.
told. It's not just
Yeah.
like a YouTube short or something of that. So there are movies in that. There are real movies in those worlds, and the same could apply for if you go down south to Bangalore, Hyderabad,
Yeah.
Chennai, or
Yeah.
wherever else you want to travel to.
Yeah.
Um, and what's happening is that there is this kind of ironclad sort of mold that is being forced upon people, and only do this kind of thing. I think there are some really great experiments coming out of South India. I think I've seen some
Yeah.
terrific films from Assam, and I feel that they could push themselves a little more if people could take risks. I think people should just take risks. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's no sort of real one single answer to that. But the point is to keep fighting, to keep resisting, and
Yeah.
not to accept all this kind of the noise that comes from this sort of kind of corporate world.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of
And
ironic.
yeah.
At one point, everyone thought this kind of corporate sort of way of making films would streamline things or open new opportunities. Actually, it's not.
Yeah.
In many ways, ironically,
Yeah.
and this is not being nostalgic, it's those mavericks back then and the rebels who just kind of went and did their own thing and did their films, and they were responding to certain political times. It was the post-independence or independence for some of them.
Yeah.
There were definitely things that they were reacting to and responding to within their own kind of language of making films. Each one may have had a different language of making films. Guru Dutt's language, Guru Dutt, by the way,
Yeah.
is related to the Benegals.
Oh.
Uh,
Wow.
yeah, so it's Guru Dutt Padukone, and Kalpana Lajmi is Guru Dutt's youngest sister's daughter. Kalpana is a cousin of mine. Um, So the thing is that Guru Dutt was doing his thing, Raj Kapoor was doing his thing. They were both different languages. Just because
Yes.
they had songs, you can't say that, hey, this is just Bollywood and all. They were doing their own kinds of things. They had their
Yes.
own kind of voice. And I'm consciously
Yes.
giving you two examples
Yeah.
like that. You had Ray and you had Ghatak, who had different
Yes.
voices, and then you had the rebel Mrinal Sen. So you
Yes.
had on that spectrum, you had all of that. I think there's that incredible richness of that world of Indian cinema, which people need to be aware of and cognizant of. And I think that the kind of lack of um, imagination that all these studios and their execs have
Yeah.
is what is crippling this whole kind of story. It's crippling Indian
Yeah.
storytelling.
Yeah. 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 That's such a great point, Dave. So right now, when you are making your next films and you have a huge lineup of them, as I was reading through it, do you see that you have the kind of financing challenges that you faced when you started versus the financing challenges now? Do you see a difference, or do you see that you mentioned, like you just mentioned, that studios, the point that you mentioned about the studios and execs, do you see that? And with you being in your position, how are you going to sort of tackle that?
It's a challenge, as Mira Nair has said quite famously a long time back, which I remember. She said, every morning you wake up, it's like going to war. And
Yes.
honestly, she is absolutely right. It is like,
Yeah.
you know, it is not pleasant. And there are times when I think, like, why the hell am I doing this? But then there is something there that kind of, somehow something happens, and by the time you have your first cup of chai or coffee or whatever you're having, you
Yeah.
then just realize, no, no, no. There is something about it. And it's also something about when people see what you've done, when
Yeah.
they see that and you talk to them and you see how it has touched them or moved them. And that's what kind of keeps you going. That's what keeps you going. That it's not it's more just hearing that response to your work, and it's not just some positive praise or something. There may be people who just don't like it and who hate it and who have not connected with it. My own very close friends find my films very slow. And I remember the last one I made. My friend said that the next film you make, can you make that a little faster, please? I love them. I love them. They're really dear for this. Very close friends of mine. I love them. And but the thing is that okay, that's something that you're hearing. And yeah, okay, all right, next one I'll try and yeah, okay, I'll do a thriller for you. You know. Um,
Awesome. Awesome. I'm just going to quickly ask you a couple of questions because you haven't had your coffee and you might just get these stress bouts or you might get irritated. But so quickly, I'm going to cut through these quick questions. One being that the well-being on a filmmaker, the well-being of a filmmaker like David Lynch. I'm a big fan of Lynch, and he
Me
was a
too.
transcendental meditator. Do you feel artists should keep themselves calm while they're going through war, getting up every morning? How do you tackle your well-being?
Well, actually, I do meditate.
Wow, nice.
So I definitely do that. And I don't mean going to sleep. I mean like serious, I mean like very, very, and it's difficult. It was difficult to do that. I do that. I've done Vipassana also once, which was terrific. And terrific is the wrong word for it, but I think that's important. I think keeping calm is very, very important. I was told Tanishta Chatterjee, who acted in Road Movie, told her family that I was the coolest, calmest director she's met, which is like, okay. Because the point is that I don't think that's the, for one, I think my team is really wonderful that I work with. Again, it boils down to that thing about trust. And I work in a very different way where I'm not kind of, and I think that's what I learned about not being insecure when I was working with Shyam and with Shubroto Mitra and stuff like that. And I think with my team, I include them in. So if there are things, for example, I know that there are times when I just couldn't figure out how do we film this scene, and I'd call in the whole team and not like some brainstorm kind of thing, like, guys, this is the scene, this has to be done, and like, what are the ways we can do this? And everyone chips in. Suddenly, everyone is there in it. And I think that for me, that's my style of working, and I find it very kind of calming. And I also think that I have a few people on set who can interrupt so it's not, I'm not the guy calling action and cut. I don't do that at all. I'm not that kind of director. But there are a few people, if they feel that it's something is not right and I need to do a retake, they will just literally message me a tiny little look, and I'll know that something is wrong. And
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
it's just, I think it's very important not to let, because I know that when you go into these meetings, it can be really brutal, it can be difficult, and it can be a real struggle because you never know where you stand, and it's a kind of power play. And I think the important thing to remember for all filmmakers out there, the most important thing to remember is that without you, these guys don't exist.
yes, yes.
So
And that's a
don't
great.
think that you
Always.
need them desperately. You're not someone going out with a begging bowl. Don't think that you need them desperately. Please remember, they need you desperately.
Yes.
And without you, they cannot do anything. Please remember that you, for whatever it is, have a better sense of your world, your characters, your stories than they do. So every time they tell you they haven't understood something, it's their kind of lack of knowledge and their insecurity in all of this. And then
Yeah,
remember, it's
yeah,
a power play. So if you can keep your head calm and cool about this, and know that when you're getting into these situations, and I'm not using any strong language, but they're kind of going to mess with your brain. And
yeah,
you have to be able to kind of read that, read the leaves
yeah.
before you go into the meeting.
Yeah, awesome, awesome, lovely, lovely. I can go for the next 5 hours with you, Dave, and I'm still not finished. So much to talk, fiction, non-fiction, but I'm gonna let you go as now, and I'm gonna be so. I'm so thankful to you. You took out time. Just one more last question. I just want to add in this episode is that when you get up in the morning, Dave, how do you plan your day? What are a couple of things that you think about? Is there how what do you think when you wake up the first thing in the morning?
Oh my God. The first thing in the morning I wake up, I just need some coffee or chai, depending on where I am. And then sort of process what happens. But I do actually, at the beginning of the day, my week starts on Sunday. So I start work on Sunday.
Yes.
And what I do is that Sunday I map out what has to happen the whole week ahead. I also work in, if you really want to know now, I block chunks of time out.
Yeah.
So there are chunks of time out that are blocked for certain projects. Or, for example, right now I'm looking at the final finessing of this new movie called Everything
Yeah.
Is Not Okay, which is around about an 80-minute film, a 80
Yeah.
minute film.
Yeah.
And so I'm just sort of thinking about that most of the times. And I also have a terrific team of young producers, and I will get a list of things I have to accomplish on certain days and so on and so forth. So it's very, very organized. And I think that's something I used to do back in Shyam Benegal's days also, just be very organized in the way of working. What's our work? Because there were many things you were handling actually back then. Um, so I do listen to a lot of music. I do listen to a lot of music. So I like to pull out usually a decompress it. I don't like to watch too many movies because by the end of the day, I'll decompress and listen to music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I go for a really long walk, like, 6 kilometers, 8 kilometers, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That sort of thing, which is difficult to do in Bombay, but yeah, you
Yeah.
find places, you find things and all of that. Um, yeah, first thing in the morning is no thoughts, just a clean, clear mind, some coffee, and then slowly get into, takes me time to sort of get into things.
Wow, awesome. Slow mornings are the best. Thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you very
I'm
much. It was a
thank you
pleasure.
for all your pointers, for all your lessons. It's such a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Thanks.